Hi, and welcome back to the Intimacy Reset. So, let's get straight into it. Here is something I need you to sit with for a moment. You want intimacy more than just about anything, and yet you're also absolutely terrified of it. Now, both of these things are true at the same time, and that's not a contradiction. That's not you being broken or confused or bad at relationships. It's the intimacy paradox. We spend our whole lives craving the very thing we're running from, longing for connection while building walls, saying we want to be seen while carefully controlling what people get to see. And most of us don't even realize we're doing it. Last episode, we talked about what intimacy actually is. We talked about the six types of intimacy, the difference between intensity and depth, and how most of us have been getting it wrong our whole lives. But today, we're going a little deeper, and it's a more difficult part. And we're talking about the fear that lives underneath all of it, the fear that keeps you from the very thing you're aching for. And I'm going to tell you something right now that might make you uncomfortable. Intimacy isn't always safe, but you can handle it anyway. Now, let's talk about why you're scared and what that fear is actually trying to protect you from. Here's the equation that explains everything about intimacy. Vulnerability equals exposure. When you're vulnerable with someone, you're exposing parts of yourself that could be rejected, misunderstood, judged, or used against you. You're taking the carefully constructed version of yourself, the one that's acceptable, the one that's lovable, bubbly, the one that's safe, and you're letting it crack open. You're saying, here's what I'm really afraid of. Here's where I'm broken. Here's what I need. Here's who I am when no one's watching. And that exposure is terrifying. Because when you show someone who you really are, you give them power. The power to hurt you, the power to leave, the power to confirm your deepest fears that you're not enough. So your nervous system does what it's designed to do. It tries to protect you. It tells you, don't say that. Don't show them that part. Keep that crazy tucked in. Keep it together. Be smaller. Be funnier. Be less needy. Be more impressive. Just don't let them see. And the thing is, that voice is trying to help. It's trying to keep you safe from the pain of rejection, abandonment, or being too much. But in protecting you from being hurt, it's also protecting you from being known. And you can't have intimacy without being known. So we're stuck in this impossible bind. You have the connection, to have the connection that we're craving. There we go. We have to risk exposure that we're terrified of. That's the paradox. To have the connection, we have to have the exposure. And so this is why intimacy can feel like death. Now, I know that might sound dramatic, but I want you to hear this. Intimacy feels like death because, in a way, it is. Not physical death, but the death of something you've been clinging to your entire life. The death of your false self. See, most of us have constructed this version of ourselves that we present to the world. The version we think is acceptable, lovable, worthy of staying. Maybe it's the version where you're always strong and never need help. Maybe it's the version that's easygoing and never makes waves. Maybe it's the version that's funny and keeps everything light. Maybe it's the version that's successful and has it all figured out. Maybe it's the version that's selfless and never has needs. Whatever your version is, it's a performance. And you've probably been performing it for so long that you've forgotten it's not actually you. Real intimacy asks you to let that version die. Real intimacy expects the real Slim Shady to stand up. Real intimacy expects the authentic version of you. It asks you to stop performing, stop managing, stop controlling how you're perceived. And it asks you to just be. With all your mess, with all your needs, with all your contradictions and complications and cracks, flaws and all. And your nervous system interprets that as danger. If I stop performing, they'll see who I really am. And if they see who I really am, they'll leave. So it feels like death. Because the version of you that you've been using to survive, like it has to die for intimacy to be born. But here's the thing nobody tells you. That death, it's not the end of you. It's the beginning. Because on the other side of that false self dying is the real you. The you that doesn't have to perform to be loved. The you that can be seen fully and still be chosen. But you have to be willing to let the performance end. Like, that's where the fear really comes in. And so where these fears actually come from, where does this terror of intimacy actually originate? Well, it starts early. Way earlier than most of us realize. And when you were a child, your survival literally depended on being connected to your caregivers. You needed them for food, for safety, for warmth, for everything. And your nervous system knew this at a cellular level. So you learn very quickly what gets me connection, what makes people stay, what makes people leave. And you adapt. Maybe you learned that expressing big emotions made people uncomfortable or angry, so you learn to be calm, to stuff it down, to not be too much. Maybe you learned that needing things was a burden, so you learned to be independent, self-sufficient, to never ask for help. Maybe you learned that your caregivers were unpredictable. Sometimes present, sometimes not. So you learned to be vigilant, to read the room, to manage other people's emotions so you be safe. Maybe you learned that love came with conditions, that you had to perform, to achieve, to be a certain way, to be worthy of attention. These weren't conscious decisions. You were a kid. You were just trying to survive, trying to stay connected to the people that you needed. But those survival strategies, they became your blueprint for intimacy. The ways you learned to get connection as a child became the ways you try to get connection now. And the way you learn to avoid pain as a child became the way you avoid vulnerability now. Even though you're not a child anymore, even though your survival doesn't depend on anyone anymore. Even though the people in your life now are not the people who hurt you then, your nervous system doesn't know that. It still thinks vulnerability equals danger. It still thinks being truly seen could mean abandonment. It still thinks you need to perform to be loved. And until you recognize that, you'll keep repeating the same patterns. Wanting closeness, but pushing people away. Craving intimacy, but only letting people see the acceptable parts. Longing to be known, fully known, but terrified of what happens when someone really sees you. So let's talk about what those fears actually look like, because I really want you to be able to recognize them and interrupt the pattern when you see it. So here are 3 core intimacy fears. And these 3 fears, they show up in almost every intimate relationship. And most of us are walking around with at least one of them running the show without even realizing it. And so let's name them. Fear number 1 is rejection. This is the fear that if someone really sees you, all of you, they won't want you anymore. That you're fundamentally unlovable. That there's something wrong with you at your core. That you're broken or defective in some way. That if you show someone your needs, your insecurities, your darkness, your mess, they'll walk away. And this fear, it sounds like this. If they knew what I was really thinking, they'd leave. I can't tell them I'm struggling. They'll think I'm weak. I have to be impressive or perfect or put together, or they won't want me. If I ask for what I need, I'll be too much. It looks like only showing people your highlight reel. It looks like downplaying your feelings or your needs. It looks like overcompensating by being the perfect partner, friend, or person. It looks like staying in relationships where you're not getting your needs met because at least they haven't left you. Or ending the relationship first before they can reject you. This fear was learned when love felt conditional, when you had to earn affection, when being yourself wasn't enough or it wasn't welcomed. And so here's what I need you to know. Being rejected is painful, but it's also survivable. The risk isn't that you'll be rejected. The risk is that you'll spend your whole life performing to avoid rejection and never actually find out if someone could love the real you. Fear number 2, engulfment. This is the fear that intimacy means losing yourself. That if you let someone in too close, you'll disappear. That closeness equals being controlled, consumed, or having no space to be yourself. And so this fear sounds like, if I commit, I'll lose my freedom. They want too much from me. I feel suffocated when people need me. I need space. Not as a request, but as an escape. And this is what it looks like. It looks like pulling away when things get too close. creating emotional or physical distance when someone wants more connection. It's valuing independence above everything else. It's feeling trapped in relationships even when nothing is actually wrong. It's picking partners who are unavailable, emotionally unavailable, so you never have to face real intimacy. It's leaving relationships when they start to feel too serious, even though it's what you really want. This fear was learned when your boundaries weren't respected, when love felt like ownership, when being close to someone meant losing yourself. But know this: real intimacy doesn't erase you. It doesn't mean losing your identity or your autonomy. Healthy intimacy has space in it, room to be yourself and room to be together. The fear isn't closeness itself, it's that you've experienced closeness that didn't honor your boundaries. But intimacy with someone who respects your boundaries, that doesn't consume you, it expands you. The fear number 3, being truly known. This is the deepest fear of all. This is the fear that if someone really, truly knows you, not the curated version, not the performance, not the actual you, in all your complexity, with all your idiosyncrasies, you won't be able to hide anymore. This isn't just about rejection or engulfment. This is about being seen. And being seen means you can't pretend anymore. You can't control the narrative. You can't manage how someone perceives you. You just have to exist as you are and let them see it. And this fear sounds like, I don't know how to explain what I'm feeling. Or nobody would understand. Or I don't want to burden anyone with this. Or it's easier to just handle it myself. Or if they really knew me, they'd see how messed up I am. It looks like keeping conversations surface level, even with people you're close to. It looks like sharing facts about your life, but not how you actually feel. Or being the listener in relationships, but never the one who shares. It's presenting different versions of yourself to different people. It's feeling lonely even when you're surrounded by people who know you. This fear was learned when being seen felt dangerous, when vulnerability was punished, when you showed someone the real you and they used it against you, dismissed it, or made you feel ashamed. So you learned it's safer to stay hidden. But being known is the only way to be loved, not admired, not needed, not wanted, loved. Love that would benefit you at the expense of itself. Love that would hold space for the most fragile pieces of you. Love that will show up so you're never alone. Because if someone loves the version of you that you're performing, they don't actually love you, they love the mask. And you'll spend your whole life exhausted, maintaining the mask, wondering why you still feel so alone. Being truly known can be terrifying. I'm not going to lie to you about that. Because when someone really sees you, you're exposed. There's nowhere to hide. But that exposure, that's where real connection lives. That's where you find out that you can be fully yourself, messy, complicated, imperfect, and still be chosen. Not in spite of who you are, because of who you are. There's this pseudo intimacy. It's a survival strategy. And it's how we cope. We create pseudo intimacy. It's connection that feels intimate, but doesn't actually require vulnerability. It's the illusion of closeness without the risk of being known. Let me show you what this looks like. Oversharing too fast. You tell someone your whole life story on the first date, you trauma dump, you share everything, and it feels like intimacy because you're being vulnerable. But the thing is, you're sharing information, not actually letting yourself be known. You're controlling the narrative. You're performing vulnerability. It's exposure without actual connection. Real vulnerability isn't about how much you share. It's about letting someone see you in the moment without the script. Another way it shows up, keeping everything light. You're funny, charming, easy to be around. You can talk for hours, but it's all surface. Banter, jokes, and stories. Nothing that actually matters. And it feels like connection because you're spending time together. You're laughing, you're enjoying each other's company, but nobody actually knows what's happening inside you because you won't let them see. And then there is connecting through intensity. We talked about that in the last episode. Mistaken intensity for intimacy. Drama, chaos, highs and lows. It feels intimate because it's intense. But intensity is a way to avoid actual depth. If everything is urgent and dramatic, you never have to slow down and actually face each other. Okay. Now let's talk about being the helper, never the helped. You're the one everyone comes to. The listener, the advisor, the rock. You show up for everyone, but you never let anyone show up for you. Because being the strong one, the capable one, the one who doesn't need anything, that's safer than admitting that you're struggling. And you can't ever let them know you're struggling. Staying busy together. You do life together. You have fun. You have shared experiences, but you never actually talk about anything real. You're building experiential intimacy. Remember the 6 types? But avoiding emotional intimacy. Because doing things together is easier than being still together. Being still means you might have to feel something. All of these strategies have one thing in common. They let you feel connected without actually being vulnerable. They give you the simulation of intimacy without the risk. And your nervous system loves this because it gets to feel like you have connection, which you need, without the terror of being truly seen, which feels like death. But understand this, that pseudo intimacy will never satisfy the craving you have for real intimacy. It's like eating food that has no nutritional value. It fills your stomach, but your body is still starving. You can have this pseudo intimacy with 100 people and still feel profoundly alone, because what you're actually craving isn't just connection. It's to be known and loved and seen and valued. And the truth is, intimacy isn't always safe, but you can handle it. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud, but I'm going to say it. Intimacy isn't always safe. I know we want it to be. I know that's the promise. Find the right person and you will feel safe to be yourself. But the truth is a little more complicated than that. When you let someone see you, you risk being hurt. You risk them not understanding you. You risk them using what they know about you in a moment of anger. And that is never okay. You risk them leaving. Some people don't have the capacity that you need to love you. Not everyone you're vulnerable with will handle it well. Not everyone who sees you will choose to stay. Some people will prove your fears right. They will. But hear this. You can handle that. You can survive not being seen and not chosen. You can survive being vulnerable and having it go wrong. You can survive rejection, misunderstanding, abandonment even. Because you're not as fragile as your fear tells you that you are. Your fear is operating from wounds of the past, from times when rejection was life-threatening, when you were small and dependent and you needed those people to survive. But you are not that person anymore. You're an adult now with resources and with resilience, with the capacity to choose who you let in and who you don't. And here's what secure intimacy actually looks like. It's not about finding someone who will never hurt you. It's about finding someone who, when they do hurt you, because they will, we all do it. We're human, we're flawed, we're going to disappoint each other. They can help repair it. It's someone who can hear, that hurt me, without collapsing or attacking. It's someone who can say, I'm struggling, and not expect you to fix it. It's someone who can disagree with you and still stay. It's someone who sees your mess and doesn't make it about them. Secure intimacy isn't the absence of conflict or pain. It's the presence of repair, of honesty, of staying even when it's uncomfortable. And you can build that. You can nurture that. Not by finding the perfect person who will never trigger your fears. They don't exist. But by learning to tolerate the discomfort of being seen. by learning to stay present when everything in you wants to run, by learning to speak your needs even when your throat closes up. It's not about eliminating the fear. It's about being bigger than the fear. Now, you might be thinking, but I'm not afraid of intimacy. I want intimacy. I'm putting myself out there. And maybe you are. Here's what I've learned. Your behavior tells a different story than your intentions. You might say you want intimacy, but do you share what's really happening with you? Or do you keep everything on the surface? You might say you want closeness, but do you pull away when someone gets too close? You might say, I want to be known, but do you let people see you when you're not on? Most of us are avoiding intimacy in ways we don't even recognize. We have these patterns, these protective strategies that we've been running for so long that they're invisible to us. And in the next episode, I'm going to show you exactly how you might be avoiding intimacy right now without even knowing it. And we're going to talk about the 6 intimacy avoidance patterns, the ways we push away the very thing that we are craving. And I'm going to help you see which one is yours. Because you can't change what you cannot see. So, I want you to have something. I want you to know, or I need you to know something before we go. If you're recognizing yourself in this episode, if you're seeing your fears for the first time, that's not bad news. It's good news, because awareness is the first step. And you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. And you can't change patterns that you can't see. And if you're realizing that your fears run deep, that they do go back to childhood, to old wounds, to ways you've learned to survive, you don't have to do this work alone. I have created some resources specifically for parental woundedness. And if you're ready to go deeper, to understand your intimacy fears and where they come from, how to heal them, I do have a course on healing parental trauma and intimacy. And there's an intimacy membership where we do all of this work together. And so you'll find the link in the description. And whether you work with me or not, please just keep showing up for the videos. Keep watching, keep learning, keep noticing. Because the intimacy you're craving, it's possible. It will not be perfect. Not safe all the time intimacy. Real intimacy. The kind where you're actually known and you're strong enough for it. So, I know this was heavy, and I hope I've given you some things to think about. Drop a comment and tell me, which fear hit home for you? Rejection, engulfment, or being truly known? All of the above. And if this opens something up, share it. Because I promise you, someone in your life needs to hear this too. I would appreciate it if you would hit subscribe, because the next episode we're going into some specific avoidance patterns. I know, but I promise you, it's worth it. Everything you want is on the other side of your fears. Everything. This will even heal your ability to go after your goals and dreams. So many things can be healed through this. Relationships with your parents or with your children, or with your significant other, or just with yourself. It's one thing to look yourself in the mirror. It's another thing to do your hair, brush your teeth, put on your makeup, and never really look yourself in the face. You're not broken, but you might just be scared. And that's okay. Let's just keep going. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Blessings to you.